All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. If everyone could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we begin our meeting, I'd like to have a short moment of silence for the students and families of Marjorie Stone Douglas High School. Thank you. To begin, we're going to have a session of public input. Before we do public input, I'm going to ask their vice chair to go over some of our public input norms, and we'll get going from there.
We're going to have one 15-minute public input at the beginning, and we'll have a second input session at the end of the review. Please give your name and the town you're from if you're going to speak. Basically, these sessions are for Noble residents. The chair may allow people to speak that are from out of district at his discretion. Please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. And remember that we can't discuss individual employees at a public meeting. And you should bring those concerns to either the principal or the superintendent.
Thank you. With that said, do we have any public input this evening? Okay. Seeing no public input, we're going to move forward to the acceptance of the minutes of February 1st, 2018.
Make a motion to accept the number.
We have a motion to accept. Is there a second? All those in favor of accepting the minutes as written? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stand behind your hand, right?
Yeah.
Rebecca, did you?
I wasn't here, so
So a 702?
602.
602? 702, we got full 9.
Oh, 7. Well, go back. Sorry.
oh, she stuck it.
Typically, right now is when we would have the student report, and I'm curious to know why she's not here. So we're going to put that on hold until...
Do you have the report? Would you like to just read it?
Well, we'll see if she shows up.
Okay.
She should be showing up. So we'll give that a skip, and we'll move on to number 6, financial summary.
How do you know the student's going to show up? How do you do that?
I don't know, there's consequences for letting me down.
Sounds like a pain in the
We typically are late.
So this is a financial summary by the close of January. You have the revenue categories at the top, expense reports as usual at the bottom. Nothing unusual. In the other category under revenue, that covers things like our main laptop technology reimbursement, Msad 35, the administrative staff that we share with them, the reimbursement comes into there because they're under 60 contracts, sports and activities fees, and insurance proceeds. Any questions on any particular topics? See, the TTV is under other expenses as well as food service. The Tri-Town component.
Give the board a minute to digest it.
It's going to be
You get water?
17% left.
What is that?
Transportation.
Because that's, all the other stuff is encumbered.
Encumbered. Yeah. So if you look under the encumbered, it's 889,000, which is largely there's wages and benefits.
Any other questions for the financial summary? Well, seeing as we just skipped the student report, and she's kind enough to grace us with her presence, we're going to go back to that. Go to student report with Caitlin.
Okay, to start, For Valentine's Day, National Honor Society sold flowers in the Mez. It went very well. It was a really good fundraiser. They haven't decided what charity they're donating to yet, but I think that's being decided next meeting. We've had a very good end of sports season coming up. So, the Nighthawks Unified Basketball Team defeated Msad Friday night by a score of 40-36. The girls' track competed in the tightly contested Southwestern Championships this past Saturday, finishing 4th place, just 4 points shy of the leaders. Leading the way for the Knights was Nina Tasker with a first place finish in 55-meter hurdles. The 4x400 meter relay team of Morgan Griffin, Haley Boardman, Gabby Carpenter, and Emma McLaughlin, and a second place finish for Tay Hardy in shot put. 3 school records were broken and multiple new personal records were set at this event. The girls' biggest highlight of the meet was when Coach Lawrence was named the SMAA Track Coach of the Year. And wrestling also did very good this past weekend. The wrestling team clinched the first place Class A South Regional title on Saturday. They will be sending 10 wrestlers to the state meet to be held this Saturday, the 17th at Stanford High School. So that's what's up this week.
Good week. All right, thank you very much.
Yep.
Number 7, budget presentation.
So the budget booklets, as I've talked about with folks, I don't know what I'm imagining, but
At times, we imagine.
you just can't imagine.
Only at MSAD 60, folks.
We're going to be dropping booklets off wherever people would like tomorrow. So I have, Rebecca, where would you like us to bring in? We actually know where Subaru turns off, just past above Fry's. So is that a good place for me to drop a booklet off?
Sure.
All right, so it'll be in a protected bag for you, and you'll
Okay.
find that back door, front door, what's good?
Back door.
Back door. Well, then I won't go there. Okay. And I don't think I could live that close to Lower Fry's and not be 100 pounds heavier than I am now. Have you had the pizza? So, a document for you.
What's that? Sorry.
So this is, by the way, of major drivers of the budget. As you may know from the opening presentation I did at the Berwick Town meeting a week ago, a week and a half. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised. And then also some discussion at the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee the other evening. The budget increase right now is, we're in a tough spot. We're looking at an overall approximate increase on the expenditure revenue combination side of about 6.25. That's unheard of for us. We've typically been in the 3.8s, 3.9s. And frankly, one of the pieces that I talked about is that those 3%, 3.8s, this year 3.91, have been attrition modes for the past several years because of continuing loss of state funding and to some degree loss of some federal funds as well. And then there's some other costs which I'll address in this that are driving our needs up significantly. So here's an example on positions. There is an anticipated $665,000 increase in positions alone next year. That doesn't reflect some massive change in the total enrollment for the school. It would be, I think, maybe a 50-student increase, something like that. So those numbers don't kind of match, but here's what we're looking at. The number of cases and the significance of the fragile cases for our nursing staffs have us in a situation where Sarah West, no matter how hard she tries in Lebanon, cannot be two places at the same time, even though the schools are in walking proximity to each other. We are looking at the addition of a floating nurse, which would mean that the person would be housed at the Lebanon Elementary School and then would also do fill-in at other schools. In the athletics, as you're aware, now this is a cost-neutral piece except for the insurances. In the athletics, we made the move to change the clerk position to a half-time and put in a full-time assistant athletic director. No salary and wage changes on that at all from the budget that we currently have in 17-18. We're looking at the addition of 2 permanent substitutes, one at the middle school and one at the high school. We are routinely running short of people to be able to do coverage in those buildings. And what happens is we're saying to staffs, we either have to pull an educational technician from a program that they're assigned to, or we have to pull we have to ask volunteers to cover classes, and that means they're missing their professional learning community time, they're not working on their particular curriculums, they're being gracious and helping us out, but at the same time they're not able to get the things done we need to have happen. There is at HUSI, a regular education ed tech addition of the position. At HUSI, there is also an addition of a grade 3 regular classroom. At the middle school, a grade 6 and a grade 7 classroom. The middle school has the bulge going through it this time, so they'll see about, I think it's a 60 student increase for their 2 grades altogether. In grades 4 and 5, we're talking about we've had this discussion. We have 34 known cases coming into the school system from child development services. That's for programming for 3 and 4-year-olds. That's under state supervision and MDOE. And in a lot of cases, it flags heavy need programming for students. We know that in that group of 34, there are 10 students who are going to be in need of our most intensive small setting programs that we have. And they're all kindergartners, and we don't have a program that we can absorb these students into. The state maximum for those students is 11. They're a new program by themselves. So that is I'll get to that one. At grade 4 and 5, a self-contained behavior room at Knowlton. Half and half regular education, half special education behavior teacher at HUSI School. Half an IEP elementary coordinator for special education. I'm sorry, I combined something right there. It says 3 special education ed techs, so that's 2 separate things. Half an IEP elementary coordinator. We did pick up this year an extra 9%, about 50 students in special education. And Susan Macri, who is the director, and Laura Lenahan do not have enough staffing, and they can't be at enough IEPs, as well as build programming, train people, supervise, evaluate. We need to add a half a person to maintain the coordination of those IEP teams. And then with some of the programming that we have, you'll see the self-contained autism room that would be a kindergarten program at HUSI I was starting to speak to. That includes 3 special education ed techs. So all together, there's 7.5 teacher positions, which is approximately $525,000, and 4 educational technician positions at $140,000. And in the athletics, as I said, there's no a wage or a salary increase. The difference would be in what insurances the person happens to take. So those are some of the position situations that are driving costs. In losses, I've talked about this as well. The mill rate currently is $8.19. So the mill rate is the state says this is what school districts need to charge in order for education to be funded in the state of Maine. Some of the mill rate in the past, for instance, would have gone when the state says we have a fund to take care of building Noble High School in 2001. That's where the funds would have come from. The EPS, the Essential Programs and Services, how much money goes to different locations based on need, that's where the money comes from. The state has decided to move, the MDOE move the mill rate from $8.19 per $1,000 of property valuation to $8.51 in one school year, 32-cent increase. That's $545,000 increase. That one item alone. And there's legislation about system administration right now that the legislators are dealing with, and if that is, if the statute on the laws on system administration and the loss of funding for that comes through, there's already been discussion from the MDOE that the mill rate could go higher. The regionalization plan, as you're aware, we have been approved for application part 1 to join a regional service center for food service and for custodial supplies. And what we did not know back in October is that by January, the rules on how it's read would be changed, and we're expecting to see a loss of $139,500 after following the regulations and joining an RSC. That's the piece that's in legislation right now to consider removing that penalty. Tough to say that we're getting a penalty for following the law. Career and technical education. We've been a satellite program, housed satellite programs here for a number of years as part of SRTC. The early childhood moved back at the end of 2017. The state, in the first 2 years of your programs, the local district pays the first 2 years, and then the state payments begin to kick in. So when the programs end 2 years after that, it's a 2-year look back. They don't like the word reimbursement. You continue to recoup that money. However, new legislation just this summer indicates that the programs such as ours would not receive those funds. That's about $136,000 in costs for, no, $130,000 for the early childhood program that we should receive next year. And then the culinary program would be due to move back when SRTC at Sanford High School opens up. And that would be about $86,000 next year. So there's a total of $216,000 that we were expecting and that the district has already paid. And what the district gets to do is, instead, gets to pay for those programs to be housed somewhere else, because we're not receiving the pay. And then the second year out, we should be receiving an additional $86,000 for the culinary program, which we will not receive. So that's a $300,000 ticket for the local citizens. Kind of a backwards thank you. Proficiency-based diplomas, the state funding, the $40,000 for that ended this year, was removed. And the main laptop technology initiative, $29,000. The state pays a certain amount per seat for 7th and 8th graders under the MILTI programming. That has been significantly reduced for the per seat. So that's $29,000 that we lose. So that's a lot of money when you roll those numbers together. Legal costs. There are some situations involving municipalities right now around the participation in the MSAD and the funding formula. And those costs, significant portion of those costs are borne by the district when legal counsel is sought and so forth. So we need to be prepared for that and would anticipate an increase of about $100,000 in legal costs. Medical, we don't get our rates until April 1st. Our claims loss history has been really good, 74 cents. So for every dollar that was collected last year, the insurance companies used 74 cents on the dollar, which means we're a low cost, a low risk, low claim. So generally, if your claims loss history is low, the rate that you get the next year is low, but it's not a guarantee. So we've put we budgeted a medical increase at 5%. So given the fact that we have the 11.5 positions up top that are new for insurances, so that's 100% of the cost of those, plus the 5% on the existing medicals, that is $935,000 increase in medical coverage. And just as an example, when you think about the size of that number, and say, how is that possible? When we book a teaching position, $21,000 of that is booked as the medical approximation. So multiply that out. Salary, stipends, and wages comes to an increase of $1.42 million, or about 5.5%. The CIP, capital investment, is $404,000. That's a very, very low number. I'm concerned about how low that is. For the number of facilities that we have and the condition of our infrastructure, we would be much better served to see $1 million number in this area, but that drives that 6% up to a 7 and 8%. What do you do with that? And the general maintenance is at $205,000. Transportation. We currently have 10 to 11 buses in our fleet that qualify for replacement according to state guidelines. While we're maintaining our fleet and it's in very good condition, we also realize that in order for it to stay in very good condition, we should be seeing at least 5 years of a 4 large and 2 minibus cycle every year for that 5-year period in order to maintain. What we put into the budget instead this year is 1 large bus and 3 minibuses. Our minibuses are in the worst shape of some of our buses, so we need to replace those. So we should be at a rate of 6 buses, and we're going to be looking at 4. You might look at this list and say, well, if this is what's in the list that's driving this cost of 6.28, what kind of a budget is this? And I want to assure people that it is not some wish list pie in the sky budget. We talked about this high school, for instance, that we have a section of the gym wall that's we pulled off and found, because we found some leaks, and underneath there's no tie back and there's no flashing around some of the windows on another piece, and that's $30,000. It's a very small portion of the building. We've got to continue to move our way around the building in several budgets. We are in need of a second plow truck to help cover so that we don't have to go out for bids on some of these projects, but that's $32,000 to $40,000 for that plow truck, and it would be less expensive right now for us to bid that out, and hope that doesn't come to that kind of number. Smaller things, certain tables from North Berwick Elementary School, office renovations there, Noble High School, microscopes, hand tools, treadmills, portable vision screener for the nurses, pressure washer for the bay, basketball hoops, girls volleyball. We will be the only school in SMAA next year without a volleyball team. Virtual high school. I've talked about the kids, and this is 21st century, and they're all going to be taking virtual courses. And you don't just come to that naturally. You have to learn how to be a virtual student, or how to take virtual classes. And we would love to be able to begin to teach students that, but we don't. This is not the year to do that. We have 4 schools that still need generators, and that's been on our list for 3 years. We would not be able to do 2 of those. No paving projects would take place at all. And then in an incredible major piece to this is there would be no plans to do a phase 3 at Noble Middle School or the Owl's Nest project in the Lebanon schools, which is, these are problematic things, and that's what it is taking for us to get to a 6%. So this is not something that we're saying we're taking it lightly at all. Questions about the information that you see in this, or?
I have just a couple of minor questions in the positions. Are we including the funding for the 2 sabbaticals that were approved?
Yes.
That would be another equivalent 1 full-time. Is that in here?
Mm-hmm, it is.
And then just on, again, minor question, on the buses, we need 4 large and 2 minis, but we're getting 1 large and 3 minis?
Yeah, so if we did 4 and 2 in 2019, and then did it again in 20, 21, and 22, our fleet of, I think it's somewhere between 47 and 51 vehicles. We have some vans, we have minibuses, we have a rack body truck, these are all part of our fleet. If we put, back in a dozen or a little bit more years ago, there was a need for the district when Sue and Paul joined in the roles of superintendent and assistant superintendent. That same year, the busing was decertified. Correct me if I'm missing terms here.
Yeah, they
Wouldn't pass inspection.
wouldn't pass inspection.
Yeah, so
it was actually, I can't believe it was 17 years ago.
Okay, so the school system had to buy 10 buses at a shot.
Yeah.
Well, after you do that, you're constantly playing catch-up, and we're still on the tail end of that catching up. The state allows buses that are 10 or more years and 120,000 miles or something like that to be considered for replacement. But as I said, we have 10 or 11 buses that currently qualify. There's a problem that we have in that the state right now, as far as their replacement cycle is going, they're only accepting buses that are between 13 to 17 years of age. So ours can be replaced, but they're not going to be replaced. And there is a new program at Limestone, which is a mere 6-hour drive by bus, 7? And at Limestone, if you have a 5 to 7-year-old bus, they will take that there to refurbish the bodies of the buses. That is not a practical move for us to send our mid-range buses. They have to be inspected, so you have to take it up. I got to take the driver off the road to do that. They have to be, if they're approved, you have to take 2 drivers, send them up. The bus is left there. You have to take 2 drivers, go back and get them. So while some of our mid-range buses might get a little bit longer life, our older buses are aging and aging. And so we're caught in this in-between phase that is not a good place for any of the districts in York County to be in. Other questions?
These discussions on the losses or the mill rate and all that stuff, none of that's final yet, right?
So the legislators are grappling with these issues now. The mill rate was supposed to go 2 years ago from 8.21 to 8.32, and the legislators backed that up. So these are not done deals. The mill rate, the legislators can still act on that so the districts don't lose those kinds of funds. Because what it is there's discussion that the state is paying $136 million more in education, but they're driving down how much the state is contributing. So it's passed back to the local taxpayers to oversee that burden. I don't think that's how you meet a 55% that was voted into state law 7 years ago. So that can be overridden with legislative support. The regionalization can be overridden. The CTE, that's a career and technical education, that's a tough one because what I can find out is that there's only 2 school districts, MSAD 60 and Bucksport, that currently have satellites that are moving back to other places and are kind of caught in this. So there's probably not going to be a legislative decision that's going to change something like that, but it's a factor that I can bring to the attention of the DOE and to our legislators to say, unfair deal. The proficiency-based diploma, that is funding that the legislators can make a decision on. The multi-seating per student seat cost, they can make a decision on that as well. So there's only one thing on the list that I think would not be something that's going to get a lot of legislative, could get a lot of legislative attention.
Do we have a timeline for the legislations? When we think we like? I mean, are we?
They're halfway through their session right now.
I know last year it was
Like, are these things
Say
on
that
the
again?
table?
So last year it was July when we found out, but.
Yeah, which is where the problem arose because it was 3:30 in the morning on July 4th. And documents were passed before they were completely understood. So the regionalization piece is on the table at this time. The mill rate, I have not been hearing discussion about that. And I'm really surprised by that because it was not listed anywhere that I could find prior to January 6th. So if that's only been a month and maybe 5 weeks of conversation, that kind of just fell on the scene fairly suddenly. And that's tough for school districts to say that they could prepare for.
Steve, just sort of go back 1 minute on the regionalization. If they don't reverse that, can we, with that first step, did we have the option of backing out?
Yes.
So couldn't we ultimately back out and not take the 139?
Yeah, so don't quote me on the exact numbers, but I'll give up what it was like. It was if you didn't opt into the application process, it would be $46 per seat, per student in your district. And when you're thinking 3,000 kids, that's gonna ouch to it. And then what happened was, once we found out that we were accepted, at the same week, the first week in January, we found out we were accepted for the Regional Service Center to go into phase 2. It's not an obligation. Then there was a reinterpretation by the MDOE from their October letter that said, wait a minute, this can be read a different way. Here's the money that you would get instead. So that ended up being a $43 per seat loss, even though we were agreeing to the regionalization plan. And then it gets worse in year 2 because in our 1920 budget, it would be an additional $91 per seat loss. So
If we do join.
if you don't join,
If
it
you don't
would be an
join.
addition.
So it's either this or something worse.
That's the way I'm seeing it right now.
So there's just no benefit to joining except to not make it worse.
To minimize the penalties. Yes.
And where's the savings going that they think they're going to get from?
So the view on the savings is that money should not be going to superintendents, assistant superintendents, business managers, payroll, human resources, special education directors, transportation directors, facility and maintenance, curriculum coordinators, shouldn't be going to those kinds of roles. The bookkeeping, those should be regionalized, and by doing that, more money can go to the classrooms. But then on the other side of this, I look at the mill rate change, and my question is, where is the money coming from that's going to support more to the classrooms? that's not taking this money and saying, we're going to put that, we're going to shift to the classrooms. I'm not seeing it. I don't have an answer as to where the funding actually is. If I looked at the document that the state provides us on essential programs and services, the ED 279, I can look at and see, here's some increases, here's some decreases. A major increase in one of the categories is that in previous years, the state has said, here's 100% of your essential programs and services, if the state funded it. However, the state's only going to fund 97% of that. 3% is held out for administrative costs at the state level per district. So this year in the calculation, the state has listed that you'll get 100% of the EPS. Well, that's an extra $438,000 that the district is not seeing a loss on. We're seeing gains there, but I'm seeing losses, substantial losses in other areas. So even though we see one gain, we're seeing many more losses.
Any other questions?
Is there any optimism among our legislative delegation that they might be able to impact some of this?
So I think that I love the rule of 100. I love an email, 2, 3, 4, 5 emails, feel like 2, 3, 4, 500. We're very fortunate because we have a person who's also an employee of the district, Karen Garish from Lebanon, who is a strong supporter for schools, and she even communicates with me from the floor to say, are you aware of this bill? So I get a lot of good information, a very easy person to reach out to share some feedback. So Karen Garish would be a good person to provide information to. I think that Jennifer Parker, she represents parts of North Berwick and then moves into South Berwick and Elliott, I believe. She's a representative, very involved. I've had numerous conversations with her. Ron Collins is a senator. Beth O'Connor is a representative. So I think it's good to reach out to our local representation. But beyond them, there's also there's a committee that is called the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee, and they're the first people to take a shot at the legislation. So writing even just brief emails to say, please consider this, or writing a position about how these things harm us to that committee is very beneficial. I've gone to the DOE to testify. Actually, you've been at some of the testifying with me. You went to testify that same time. So I think that those are really helpful. And I think the results paid off. I think committees listened, took people seriously for taking the time either to travel to Augusta to testify or to send communication. They're very willing to listen to that. And I know that 2 of the people on that committee who seem to have really good ears, not that others don't, but they're just people that I know that do. There's Victoria Cornfield, and that's with a K, Victoria Cornfield. And then there's also Brian Langley. There's 2 Brians, Brian Langley and Brian Hubble. I don't think Brian Hubble is on that this time around. Brian Langley are just really good listeners, and they bring concerns up. When you're there testifying, they will say, I've had a communication that says. So they're looking at that information and asking hard questions of the DOE. I think those would be, I would urge people to consider taking the time to see that. That's 540 net, let's see, 546, 700,000, 700,000, there's $1 million, there's a little over $1 million in those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, about $1,070,000 in just that short list of items. That's $1 million email to me. That's how It doesn't take an awful lot to do that. So that means incredible amounts to our district, huge difference. Because to get to this six-ish already represents, and I know we have conversations about this in different years, the budget that administrators presented, and to say, this is what it looks like that people think we need to do to have to run this district and to continue making improvements, strides, is this represents about a $1.6 million off of that number. So some positions that we were talking about, some programs, things that we'd like to see in a budget, we just don't bring forward because, as I said, we're in attrition. And if we were at a 3.91 like we were this year, we would be, that's serious cuts in positions. We're not talking about, let's find $1 million, let's find $1.2 million worth of supplies. It doesn't exist. And we're not, I feel like we're not getting to some of the things we need to be getting to. We're not getting to the paving projects. We're not getting to the middle school phase 3. We're not getting to Lebanon to secure some extra space for their programs for next year, let alone a year out looking at what to do at Hussey with some of the housing plans that Berwick has. We need to be prepared for them. This is an extremely difficult and contentious kind of thing to bring forward to a board and to a public, but it's the reality.
You wanted to go over some of the budget timelines as well?
Please, thank you. So tomorrow is the 16th, special delivery service to a home near you, or a fire station near you. February 21st, that's a Wednesday, I believe, 8:30 to 11:30 at central office. The facilities and finance cost center presentations will start. On February 26th, that's a Monday, the remainder of the the cost center presentations will occur at 6 p.m. at Knowlton School with the facilities and finance subcommittee. March 1st, all the rest of these are Thursday board meeting. They're Thursdays. The board and administrative workshop, that's where you have the opportunity to really, after you do a lot of work with your booklets, your notebooks, be able to dig in and say to Susan Macri from Special Ed, or to Tyler Goodwin from Food Service, or someone like that, tell me about this. I'm not following this. How does this happen? On the 8th, the Facilities and Finance will dig into the really difficult task of trying to decide what are the elements that will be on that decision-making sheet for this year, because that 6.28 is, I look at the markets and what's going on and the steep drops over a 2 or 3 day period, and they're talking about a reset. I don't take people's finances lightly, and I don't mean this in any light way, but it's almost as though this is a reset, that the budgets have been in attrition mode, and we need to do a reset so that we're not continuing down such a steep path. Those are decisions that the Facilities and Finance Committee will wrestle with and bring to the board. On the 15th, it is a regular board meeting. On the 29th is a board meeting and final draft board adoption. So we need to be thinking about, as we get into the March 1st date, I'll be talking with you folks about should we be shifting some of the facilities and finance committees to earlier days in the week to allow the board to have another meeting session. It's not a long window, but we get information. We got our preliminaries. Preliminary ED 279s, we got those two weeks ago. You can't, that's tough to build a draft budget in 2 weeks. So hard to hand you something and say we have good reliability that we crossed our i's and dotted our t's, and we haven't accidentally missed something or duplicated something either.
So do you want the board at the 21 and the 26 dates, or?
That's the Facilities and Finance
Okay.
Subcommittee. The presentations go to that group
Okay.
this year.
We're doing our new style and see how it works out. We're hopeful it'll be, we're hopeful it'll
Not that-
expedite some things.
Not that, you know, any board member obviously wishing, or
Yeah.
citizen wishing to watch and see the different.
I know the hope with the Facilities and Finance Committee is that you guys are gonna all get your books tomorrow. So you look through, you have any questions, just send them to your town's rep, and then we'll try and deal with it at that committee meeting if you can't be present.
Which is, you're the Berwick
I'm Berwick.
rep, Joanne is the Lebanon rep, and,
Stan.
North Berwick.
well, so, excuse me, Stan is the North Berwick. Yep. Any other questions?
I have a small question, mostly for our audience. When it comes to writing letters to our legislators, if they're looking for some specifics and numbers to put into their letters, can they contact your office for some informational help to help craft a letter to their legislator?
Yes, and I can put some information out on our website tomorrow to make it easier. for
That would be
people to
helpful.
able to see those email links to people, and as well as to see some of the things that we're looking at that are making this fiscal, a pretty strong fiscal clip for us this year.
So some emails could be $1 million swing. We're hoping to get some help if anyone out there wants to help write their legislator. You covered up the agenda, so you're making my job very difficult. Thank you. We're going to be moving on to strategic plan.
And I would ask that we move that to the next meeting, because I'm going to be honest with you, there have been some other pressing political things that have taken a good deal of my time lately.
Speaking of other political things I had forgotten, at the end of this meeting, we do have a couple of executive sessions. One is a readmission of a student labor contract discussion. The superintendent was asking that we add a short executive session, 4056E, for legal rights and duties, to discuss some of the issues that are potentially going to cost us $100,000. I'd need a motion to add that to the agenda.
So moved.
We
Second.
have a motion from Travis, second from Nancy. All those in favor? That's unanimous vote to add a third executive session to the end of the meeting. Thank you.
And the administrative piece will not be a 45 minutes, so it won't be
Well, then you shouldn't false advertise.
until 1 o'clock in the morning. Travis and Nancy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, with strategic plan struck from the agenda, we're going to move on to employment, new hires, retirements, and resignations.
Thank you. Let's see. Yeah, do that one because you're going to talk about it.
Do you want me to just talk about it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we, if you guys remember, oh goodness, at the, was it middle of summer, end of summer, we added a position at the American Academy. We added a teaching position. We actually held off filling that position as things were sort of getting settled at the school, and didn't hire until the second semester. So we were able to, partly it was just the budgetary issues. We were like, you know what, let's see how long we can hold off. So anyways, we just recently hired, if you're, you know, if you give permission for us to do that or agree to it, Linda Smith, who has actually been working at the school for 3 or 4 years now for us as an ed tech, and she's in the, has been doing a terrific job as a tech, and has her teaching certification. And she's working on her special ed certification right now, so she's certified as a regular ed instructor, but she can get a waiver through the state for the special ed aspect of it. She'll be working primarily with the younger group, so 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and has already, is ready to go, you know, developed a program in our yards. So we're asking that we present her to you and that you guys fully approve her in that role.
It's not an additional position, it's
Nope.
already in the budget.
You know, we actually saved a little because we didn't fill it right away.
I guess, Mike, oh, go ahead.
I know.
I thought you were going to put us in this question. I guess my question is, what changed that now we didn't need the position, but we need the position in substitute too.
So the numbers are up. We have 33 students at the Mary Hart Academy, and the focus for this particular position is on the younger grades. Because the Mary Hart Academy spans 6 through 12, you need to have, the state requirements are that you can't have a 6th grade span. You have to have teachers that are addressing each level. And so the younger students' population is increased. So we're looking specifically at that. And we just tuition 2 new students in as well.
Okay, so we've had a new addition to the district since the school year started.
And
Yes.
some are tuitioned students, so the tuitions from the other districts that are above, I think it's like 24,500, and those costs are used to offset the cost of the teacher in this case.
So, and we knew the numbers were, when we asked for the new position, the numbers we knew were coming, they were climbing, so, but we were able to kind of hold it off as long as we could. That's why we did it.
I'd like to make a
So-
motion to,
I apologize. I should have asked if there was, I was going to ask if there's any further questions for Sue. No, Sue, is there a motion to accept the position? Or is that the
I
wrong?
think Ms. Potter made the
Ms.
motion.
Potter made the motion. Is there a second?
Thank you.
Second from Rebecca. Becky, I'm sorry. All those in favor? Stand again. There we are. Anything else on that topic, or was that it?
No, that's not on that topic.
Okay, moving on to other business.
I have a couple of pieces to share. One is a donation. Mike McKenzie, owner of Max Home Improvement out of Elliott, Maine, is desiring to sponsor 10 food bags for students on a weekly basis out of the Mary Hart Academy. And his donation will be $50 a week. Its approximate value from now through the end of the year would be about $900. It's over the $500 threshold. So
And that's for the backpack program?
Yes, it is.
That's excellent.
There's 2 of those, though.
The other one's already done. The
Oh,
other
okay.
one.
I need a motion to accept this generous donation.
So moved.
So a motion from Travis, second. Second from Nancy. All those in favor? With great thanks, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
That's outstanding.
Marvelous, marvelous, great stuff. The Tri-Town Bookmobile, the TTB, the official launch of the Tri-Town Bookmobile will be Wednesday, April 11th, which just so happens to be, Laura Cashel does not miss a trick. It's National Bookmobile Day. It's like, what? April 13th is the start of the school week vacation, so using April 9th through the 12th as sneak peek days where the TTB visits the schools and libraries so students and communities learn about the TTB. And kickoff, as I said, will be on the 11th. We're hoping for coverage. Noble High School team, we received a communication from the Bar Foundation. This is the foundation that we're working on a grant this year, and if we're successful in the grant, we can be in the process to earn a $750,000 grant that would cover 3 school years. And we received word on February 7th that after review of your team's planning and school design work to date, they are pleased to share that Noble High School has been invited to apply for the implementation grant of up to $750,000 for the 36-month period. Your proposal will now be presented for funding consideration on Thursday, March 29th, and will communicate the funding decisions by the end of the day on Friday the 30th. First step in the process is to submit a draft full proposal. That is going to be a bear. But we have good people working on that now. So that would be, that, just to be clear with people, that's not, they don't do replacement, for instance. We don't look at it and say, oh good, we can offset our budget by $300,000. It's separate programming. So just want to be clear about that.
Any other others?
Yes, I'm sorry. Last one.
You're out, others.
This is a question. Denise asked a good question on emails about crisis plans and about communications and stuff like that in the schools. So just as a body of knowledge, and I know we're in a very sensitive time right now, once again, due to a national tragedy. In our school system, we have crisis response plans for every school, and those plans are shared with key resource people inside the school and responders outside of the school. The plans themselves do not go forward to the board, a public body, but what does go forward to the board, so that you are aware that these things have happened, is their page is called Letters of Concurrence. Okay, there. So a letter of concurrence page says, for instance, that at Noble High School, the review and approval has occurred. This one's for Joe Finley, for Brian Goslin, who's the fire chief, for Johnny Kelka, the SRO, Chief Peasley, assistant principals, the superintendent, the dean of students, health center, director of transportation, so all of the key role players, facilities and maintenance head, custodial, planning team members from different departments, so that we have records that these plans were updated. It's done every fall. And then there's two things that they submit. One is the letter of concurrence that shows that these are updated, and the second one is a record of changes, so that we can go through and say, okay, on page 16 they said that they, and we can check those things out. Now, part of the question lately has been about the access for iPhones and so forth here at the school. We're having a great deal of difficulty with that. All of our classrooms have the live streaming capability, and we're seeing that in each of the pods we had the airports that could pick up the signals to be able to send to those, and those were heavily, it's not about bandwidth, it's about it's actually about the number of devices at any given moment. We were seeing that the number of connections that we had were insufficient, so over the December break, the technology department put connectivity locations in every space in this building to say, let's remediate this problem, because teachers weren't able to do their casting, Chromecast to the devices. And we were having some problems with somebody in another room taking over one that somebody was on and they don't even know it. So that occurred, and then it's right after vacation. There's this thing during vacation called Christmas, and a very common present for people at Christmas appears to be technology. Laptops that are running in the background all the time, even when the laptop is closed. Cell phones that are constantly seeking GPS tracking location information, constantly seeking to the millisecond the updates from Google. Smartphones, Fitbits, Androids. Even with all the connectivity locations that we added in this school, we were seeing 200 to 300 devices on at a time in those locations. So you get down to the point of, what are we here trying to do? Are we trying to make sure that there's texting capability and everything between people when we provide folks with a laptop? So the original idea was, okay, policy says that we can limit this and that it doesn't have to be open as a public venue. So we closed that, and then of course that's upsetting the students because they're saying, hey, I can't call home. Every classroom in this building has a working phone that you don't need a special code. You can pick up and make a phone call if you need to make one. If you don't want to do that, you can go down to the office. It doesn't cost anybody a dime. It's not about, I now can't have access to my child. It's about, I can't have immediate access to my child too. We're just so used to, if you don't have this, and if that's not going, then how does education, how does your family function? So that's really problematic. We are seeing, though, that that change over the last week has really not accomplished the result that we wanted. So in talking with Chris Russo, he's thinking about bringing back opportunity for some limited use, even though we used to turn it on at 3, off at 7:30, on at 3 o'clock. He's talking about some limited use of access at this time. And with some of the questions I only got 2 questions, so I don't want to make it sound like 100, about what about your crisis plans and so forth. All of our crisis plans are still active, are not impacted by the fact that somebody can't pick up a cell phone and call from point A to point B. Most of it relies on laptop communication or phones in classrooms. So, because the internet can be down at any time too, you have to have backup plans. So we're not concerned about our plans not working, and we are concerned about being able to use that cutting edge tool in education that we're hopeful to use.
I have a question. I'm shocked to hear that having all of those kids not have access didn't make an impact or a significant impact on the use. How is that?
Yeah, because Chris being the tech involved person that he is, and me being I still use a match instead of a lighter. I understand some of it, but what he talked to me about is, he said it's really not about the bandwidth. And for whatever reason that they were trying to use these, and I'm sorry I don't have the conversational part of that, he just told me today, he said, it's really not helping to accomplish what we want, so we're going to adjust the access. I can get you more information, but I don't have the stats.
You don't think they're just figuring out other ways to?
Oh, they're not figuring out other ways.
Really?
No. Oh, Caitlin's ready to lead like the
Just looking to
parade.
see if Caitlin's ready.
Yes, she had left, but no, they have not yet figured out how to beat the Wi-Fi.
And I knew Caitlin was upset. She was ready to lead a thing on this.
I
told her,
still
just
think it's
text
gonna
me.
happen. Yeah. Oh, she's coming up with plans, like she found out that Chris Russo had it on a
You're
timer.
not supposed to be texting during class anyway.
Well,
Forget about that?
But my point to that is, when everyone was complaining about the texting, I think it's a more efficient way of passing notes that's less disruptive. Because I remember being the Western Union of notes passing, because it used to be, you remember you fold them up in little footballs or a little like crane or whatever you had to do to just slide them around, hope you didn't get caught, so you had to read it out loud. Lisa says, private, it's
Do you know
quick.
how many of the expulsions we've had that was done, whatever was done, that kids did was?
Oh. I guess the point I'm making is, since kids had to go to school, there's ways to disrupt class, and I mean, this is just the newest version of it.
And we've been having a different level of difficulty too, in that we spend a couple hours a day on a reset with some of our devices, because there's a dark website of something that comes out of, it has a Marshwood IP address, and of course our systems are linked to Marshwood, and it disrupts Milton's phones and the high school technology, and Marshwood High School technology. So go figure that one. I mean, there's always going to be something that somebody's figuring out how to be a pain. Chris isn't telling me, though, that he thinks it's something that people are doing that's being purposefully disruptive. He thinks it's a volume thing. When I hear volume, I think bandwidth, and then that's the end of my knowledge.
Or you would think eliminating every child's
Yeah,
cell phone would
I can't
get rid
imagine
of the
how that
volume.
didn't have an impact or
Yeah.
have enough.
Yeah, it's straight out of me. But from what I hear, it has not been cracked yet. Still a lot of frustration. One thing I do want to clarify, that you mentioned earlier before the meeting about why the board, because I think the public assumes that the board knows everything that's going on at school, and why we're not made privy to the actual action plans that you have there, and the Freedom of Information Act idea. So if you could explain that, so why isn't it public knowledge and the reasoning behind it?
The last thing we're going to do is share our evacuation plans, our lockdown plans, our crisis setups outside of a school. There are some things that are online that are quite bothersome to me. For instance, I came across a blueprint of Noble High School's footprint online, and when we find things like that, we request that those be taken down. So these are things that there are security systems. We're not going to share our security systems unless it's a fire department or police department or York County Emergency Management.
So a need-to-know basis.
Well, a brief little discussion on those. Can I request that we get more involvement from our emergency services in planning on those and working on those? It sounds like you have a decent involvement here at the high school. We don't in Berwick.
Glad to know.
When Mr. Robert, was it Robert?
Yep, Roberts.
When he was at,
Oh, Robert.
he was at the Knowlton School,
Yeah.
it was awesome. I don't have any involvement.
Okay.
And I'm assuming Lebanon is probably the same way, that there's not a whole lot of involvement in that plan making. So I'd like to see that we try and get, we do receive them, we do review them, but we don't have involvement in making those adjustments.
I can do that.
I know there's safety committee meetings, and I would think that we would like to make that invitation spread a little further out than what it is spread out right now.
Right, it's not part of that review process before you guys sign off on it.
We don't sign off on it. I receive it, and that's it.
And I did not see a sign off on that.
Okay.
We don't, we're not involved in the problem. We get it, I get it every year, and it's.
Yep,
goes
that's
in
all
our-
it shows me.
But that's it.
That's all it shows me is receipt. Yeah.
Very well. Any others?
Thank you for covering this. Thank you.
Okay. We have a second session of public input, if anyone would like to speak this evening. And we have public input, thank you. Step up to the podium to the left, introduce yourself.
Would be happy to. Good evening, my name is Brenda Gagne. I'm the Director of Adult Education, and I live in the town of North Berwick. I just wanted to update you that on Saturday, the last of our 292 kindergarten book bags are ready for our 15th year. Our staff will now be contacting our usual donors that we have to fill them with school supplies for the kindergarten registration. We're pretty excited, 15 years, and this year the theme is growing healthy. We're working with Welch's Hardware. Mrs. Welch is a huge supporter, and all the other town libraries to have some fun, exciting summer reading things going in, along with Eric Carl's Tiny Seed book. So thank you.
Thank you.
And the kindergartners, thank you.
I just, did you get information through the Harold Alphonse Scholarship, I'm going to say that right, Alphonse Scholarship Program about the $500 for all students? Is there a flyer that was given to be able to be put into those packets?
I've never received.
Can I talk to you tomorrow
Yes,
about
be
that?
happy to.
I think I got a hook for you. We can get those to you very quickly.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public input this evening? Okay. With that, we are going to move into three consecutive executive sessions. It's been horrible all day with my speaking, I apologize. And then after that, we will have no more public or regular business before adjournment. So thank you and have a good evening.
Okay, so we're gonna head back down.